Hello, 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 and thank you for joining us on Dancing in the Discomfort Zone podcast. A question for you. Have you ever been in a relationship where you knew it might wreck you and you went for it anyway? Yeah, today we're talking about that. I'm joined by Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards. He's an international speaker, PhD in spiritual counseling, and the author of The Venus Flytrap, which is what we were talking about today. It is a memoir that dives deep into passion, chaos, and the uncomfortable truths we face when love, desire, and self-awareness, or lack thereof, collide. We're getting into the real stuff today. Why we ignore red flags, how we lose ourselves in relationships, and what it actually takes to come out on the other side stronger. Stephen, thank you for being here with us. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me, Anne. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited about our conversation today.
Yeah, well, as I dove into your book, I was like, oh, this is going to be a juicy one.
For sure.
And as we were talking right before the podcast, we're actually less than an hour away from each other, so it's funny to be doing this virtually, but there you have it. So tell me a little bit about Venus Flytrap, the story, what happened, and why you decided to write this book.
Yeah, great question, because it's not a book that most people would want to write.
True, it's true.
It's a little revealing. And, coming from England, we're very conservative, we don't talk about anything, right? So that was one of the biggest fears I had about writing it is, I'm, as you said earlier, I'm just putting myself out there, right? Everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the Venus Flytrap came about because I was going through my fourth divorce. I know, not many people can pull that off, right?
Oh, I'm halfway there.
You are. You're on your way. Yeah, you're doing great. So anyway, I mean, nobody gets married to get divorced, obviously. So it's never easy to go through that experience. But I was at a point in my life where I was just exhausted, carrying this, I don't know what you want to call it, persona, or trying to do everything the right way. Being in the personal development and spiritual development arena, so much, but it's not easy to do it all, right? You can know what to do and then you don't do what you know. And I was just really exhausted from carrying all that. And I just thought, I just want to have some fun, right? I just want to enjoy my life for a little bit. And so, asking you shall what, right? So then I found this lady, this woman, the star of the show, Tamaz, online. I started looking online. I was kind of, I'd been through the grieving of the marriage, right? And I was just coming back ready to get out there and live life again. And my friend of mine said, why don't you start dating? And I was like, dating? Are you kidding me? Right? A couple of reasons. One is because it was very intimidating because I hadn't been dating, obviously, been married, right? So, and then the second thing was, how do I find the time? You and I were just talking about travel and you're all over the place and, 4 days a week I'm gone. So how am I going to fit that in? Anyway, I started looking around and I found Tamaz, right? And it's pretty funny, to start out with. It's nervous, and it's always nervous when you're meeting somebody, right? Even though they're on the internet and they're not even next to you, right? It's still like, and you turn into a schoolboy again, or I did. I'm thinking, she's beautiful, she's stunning, she's like model. It was like a model, which it turns out she was. And then you're thinking, what, I'm going to send her an email. What am I going to say? You know what I mean? What if she doesn't respond? Then you go, what if she does, right? Anyway, so finally I get chatting with her and I get her to go on a date with me, or agree to go on a date with me for a coffee, right? So I'm going to drive to St. Petersburg, go for a coffee. Anyway, she agrees one day, the next day she cancels, right? Anyway, I come up with some creative ideas, which are in the book, which were funny.
Yeah. And that first date was pretty impressive. I was like, wow, all right, here we go.
I wasn't taking any chances, right?
Yeah.
Taking no prisoners. So anyway, and from the book, the name of the book comes from her, because I asked her to tie this date down. What's your favorite flower? So she knows I'm buying her flowers, right? And she goes, bird of paradise. Which really is mine as well. But I made a joke out of it. Nuh-uh, mine too, right? And then I'm joking with her, and I go, it's a bit expensive though. What's your second favorite? And boom, Venus Flytrap. And that was the whole backdrop of the whole thing. She is this beautiful bird of paradise, but inside she's the Venus Flytrap. Yeah, for all kinds of reasons that we get into in the book. But that was also it was the theme, she was constantly trying to devour me and I was the fly trying to get away, right? And I kept escaping, much to her chagrin, right? So this became the back and forth of the relationship, which got into some pretty toxic stuff, some very erotic stuff, right? And it's a story, it's a true story, right? Everything happened was true. And it had so many components in it as you start, you're looking at it and you're discovering there's love in there. There was a lot between us. There was toxicity. There was fear. There was shame. There was everything you can imagine, including tragedy. It ends up being a tragedy, in the end. Because it was really, all of it was taken out of our hands, which you start reading the book, you go, well, obviously you broke up with her at some point, right? This is crazy, right? Who would put up with this, right? So, which leads into the fact that what will we put up with? What will we give away? And so I was giving myself away, right? I was losing my identity as well as everything else, right?
Yeah, right.
As everything, and so, what I learned obviously is what a toxic relationship is. And you talked about at the beginning, the red flags, right? And how many of those I overlooked, as you start to see in the book, right? Because I was infatuated by her, obsessed by her, and she became my heroine. I was addicted, literally. It was like taking a shot of heroin, right? So, so there was a lot to enjoy. I mean, I'm sure you've had heroin, right? I'm kidding.
No, actually, I haven't.
But the point is, it's a high, right? You can imagine it's a high. It's a super high. And you become addicted to that. And also it has super lows, right? So there's this toing and froing. And we both have mental illness, right? So I have a mental illness, so does she, right? Which comes out in the book, as well as my childhood trauma, to try and explain how things can happen and to make it relatable, right? Everybody's got, what do you call it? Skeletons in their closet, right? That we hide from everybody and we're terrified anybody ever finds out. And it's kind of normal, right? But it's not healthy. When we're hiding from the world, we're literally hiding from the world. And what we're putting out into the world is not our authentic self. You and I talked about that earlier, about authenticity, right? Mm-hmm. And that when you can actually do that, it gives you an incredible sense of freedom. So like I said, I was watching some of your videos this morning, your website, and watching your podcast. And you talked about authenticity. And there's no question when they're watching you, when you're listening to you, you're doing the everyday things, which was great in the videos. You're running, doing your stuff, right? Authenticity. You've got that freedom. I see it. And I didn't for a long time.
Right.
So once I wrote this book and I put that all out there, like you said, what can anybody say about you now? You put it all out there, right? And so it gives you a freedom to say, yeah, this is who I am.
So what do you think as you're ignoring all these red flags and she's manipulating and taking advantage of situations and dealing with her own stuff too, because like you said, she had some mental illness and some trauma and all that stuff. What do you think you were hiding from, or what were you seeking in allowing some of this stuff to happen?
Yeah, I don't know that I was hiding anything from her. I think it had been hiding stuff from life.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
I mean, she brought it all out of me, right? I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So, and she gave me that freedom without necessarily knowing it, sexually, right? We were very sexually aligned with things that most people would maybe frown on, or it could be, considered as wrong in society. And she helped me seal it. She's very smart, right? She was very intelligent. So we would spend, besides spending a lot of time in the sex room, we would spend a lot of time playing backgammon, right? And while we were playing backgammon, we'd be talking about everything. And she really taught me a lot in those situations about sex, about love, about monogamy, about all these things that I thought I knew, but I didn't, right? She gave me a different way of looking at things, which opened me up tremendously, so I've never told anybody about talked about my sexuality. Nobody knew I had a sex room in my house. I would never tell anybody that, right? So she gave me I guess you would say courage or the realization it's okay. We're just who we are, right? And it's okay to be that. And if you don't accept yourself for that, well, how do you expect anybody else to, right? And no matter what you do in this life, there are going to be some people that will accept you, and there's going to be some that won't, and it's okay. Trying to be loved and cared about by everyone is a recipe for disaster, right? It's never going to work.
Do you think that's that's where it came from? I mean, the glory of this amazing, gorgeous, stunning woman who was brilliant and sexy and all these things and brought this all out in you. Was it chasing that connection with that sort of I don't know what the word is, goddess, thing on a
she was a sex goddess, that's for sure. So that's a really good question, because it brings you down to where it all starts, right?
Why because as I'm reading the book, I'm like, dude, get out. Dude, you're an idiot. Dude, you're like the whole time, I gotta admit, and your friends are coming over to your house going, dude, get out. Dude, you're an idiot, And that was on page 20, Sorry, but it's true.
First of all, in my defense, I am an idiot. So that's that out.
There you go, then.
Right? So we got that taken care of. But where it really all started for me was childhood trauma, right? And not believing that I was loved or lovable, my self-worth, right? Yep. All those were leading into it, because my belief was that I hit the jackpot and this will never happen again, and I'll never meet another woman like this, so I got to put up with what I'm going to put up with, right? To keep her, right?
Yep.
And then, as you read in the book, slowly but surely, the things that you do to make you who you are start getting left behind. Juicing, meditating, doing all the things that kept me grounded and in what I would teach. Working out, there would always be, oh, don't go now, let's do this. Let's go into the sex room and go,
let's go drink.
Work out or sex room. Let's go to the sex room, right? Yeah. So whatever it was, but you just start to give pieces of yourself away. And when we had the first date, when she says, I need to go and have a cigarette, right? I'm like, I just don't do that stuff, right? It's just not part of me. And the next thing is then, she drank, I didn't drink. The next thing I'm joining her in that, you know what I mean? So you're giving pieces of yourself away that you don't realize at the time. And before you know it, it's gone and you're lost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of things in our lives are the patterns. In the end, it's all about patterns, right? And it's breaking those patterns. And our belief system, we have transparent beliefs. We don't even know we have them. We can't even see them.
Oh, yeah.
Controlling our lives, right? And so sometimes we need someone from the outside to see that. And that's, I spend a lot of my time now working with people, trying to help them see those patterns so that they don't, cost them years of their life, right?
Well, and totally. And as I sit here and accuse you of being an idiot, I also was an idiot in my second marriage, as I gave up things of my side. So I'm there. And as you look at other people's relationships, a lot of people end up in these toxic relationships. And so how do we know the difference in the beginning? If we're starting to look at this from the outside and say, okay, as you're entering a relationship and you see a red flag and you're like, maybe it'll be okay, I really like all this other stuff. Yeah. How do we start to discern what is a significant red flag and what is something that, hey, I can work with this, because nobody's perfect. We're all bringing our luggage and our skeletons into these things. So how do you start to look for those serious red flags?
Yeah. Well, let's just be honest, right? We know, we see it, but we go past it. Right?
Yeah.
Because we want what we want, right? And, we believe what we believe. Like I said, I just thought to myself, I got to put up with that because that's the cost of having her in my life, right? So I saw it, I registered it, even to the point where when she said Venus Flytrap, I knew right there and then, right? I got that, the intuition was right there. I didn't even know what a Venus Flytrap was, right? The energy, right? And I knew that she was going to be the Venus Flytrap and I was going to be the fly. But I didn't want to hear it. I just pushed past it. So the question is why, right?
Yeah,
because the red flags just keep coming and coming and coming. So the why goes back to what I said earlier. It's about believing that you're not worthy of anything more. This is it, And that's why it's so important to work on those things before you get in a relationship, right?
Or at least once you get in it and you realize it, look directly at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
You're still going to enjoy it in your life, but then it's happening to me, right?
Yeah.
Because I haven't dated in 3 years. I haven't dated 3 years because I had to write this book, and also because for the first time in my life, I knew I needed to spend time alone.
Yeah. You had to
And
find
feel
that
good about
worthiness
it.
in yourself.
I needed that,
Yep.
right? I needed
Yep.
that, yeah. So, I forgot what I was going to say now. So, you've got to heal yourself. Now, just let's clarify something. I'm not totally healed, right? I'm not
Are we
at
ever?
another level, but I'm further along than I was, right?
Right.
And so what happens is, and only you can relate to this, if you don't heal, right, you say, I'm not going to be in a relationship, right? Great. Well, it's easy when you're not in a relationship, right?
Right.
Then you get into a relationship and you meet the same person in a different body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be tested. So I've been tested, right? Good news is so far I'm good. I got past it, right?
In the past
I know
3
that's
years,
not
at
going to be
least.
the last test. I got lots more tests coming, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so far, so good. So I am single right now because I choose it. That doesn't mean I won't be in a relationship. But right now I'm happy being single. I tell people I'm happily unmarried for the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm happy being single. I like spending time on my own.
Well,
And
and
I would.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying, if I hadn't have done that, I would never have known because I'd always been in a relationship.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I want to just mention that was important is, from being a kid, all I ever wanted to do was run away from home. And I did 8 times. But they kept bringing me back. They kept bringing me back until finally I got away from home when I was 16. But what I didn't realize back then is I wasn't running away from a physical home. I was running away from my home, which is me.
Mm.
And I spent my whole life traveling and so excited about going to this new place, right? But then wherever you go, there you are, right?
Yep.
You're there. So when I finally stopped running, and we teach a lot of things in these arenas, personal development, spiritual development, and I would always be telling people to get a journal, have a journal. And I got a journal. I journaled. But you know what I never did? I never read any of them. So I had all this mountain of journals because I was supposed to have a journal and I was supposed to write in it. And I never thought about what's the point, right? I just did it, right? And so again, it was another example of me running away, never wanting to look back because I didn't want to face the pain. I didn't want to face the reality of those things. And I was not ready to. So going through this experience was a blessing to me. I have no resentment. I have only gratitude to her, right? She was a master teacher for me, right? She taught me more than, I've worked with Tony Robbins. I've worked with Robert Kiyosaki. I've worked with some amazing gurus, which has been a blessing. Don't get me wrong. But this was the biggest shift in my life, this period of time that I spent with her. So I'm immensely grateful. I don't want to go through it again. And I'm not going to get back with her, but I'm very blessed that it happened to me. For me, as I like to say.
And we learn so much more from the pain, and having to deal with it ourselves. Like I was just listening to Bashar, who's a channel, blah, blah, blah. And they were saying that you can't teach somebody something. They have to learn it in their own way, on their own time. And oftentimes it's these these traumatic experiences that teach us the biggest lessons. I was planning to dedicate my emotional intelligence book to my ex-husband. I wish to never see you again, but thanks for all the lessons, because we learn these things. But you go to a core topic that a friend of mine and I were talking about this weekend, these secret beliefs, these beliefs that we get from way back. Yours was worth. I need to feel worthy. My friend's was I need to feel safe. Mine is I want to feel seen. I want to feel truly seen for who I am. There's a fourth foundational belief that often leads us to these lessons and everything like that. So as you started to recognize I am seeking worth in all of these relationships and I need to seek that within myself, what are the steps you started to take to heal that piece, to find that worth in yourself? So that you could stop the pattern.
Yeah. Well, there's 3 foundational fears that we all have. We may or may not be aware of. One is self-worth, right? Because there's a part of us that believes subconsciously that we were left here by our creator and therefore we're not good enough, right? And then that spills out into everything else. The second thing is trust, being able to trust.
Mm-hmm.
And again, trusting in a higher power that never left us, that's here for us, and we don't have to fear being left alone, which is the third one, which is abandonment, right? So those are the three things. So we're all going through those at some level. They're in the consciousness, the human consciousness. They're part of the challenges that we're given here to live in this existence. So, so there was more than just self-worth. It was the fear of being left alone, being abandoned. It was the fear of trusting in my own intuition, right? In myself, because I saw it, right? But I didn't trust it, right? Because of my desire to be worthy of having this woman in my life, right? So different things are going to cause you to overlook what you know, you say in your heart, intuitively, is not going to be good for you. And there's not necessarily anything wrong about that. Because if you don't listen to your intuition, you're going to have an experience, right? Which is going to be the same result if you'd have listened in the beginning, right? If you'd have listened to your intuition, you wouldn't have had to go through that. But you went through it and now you know. And you go, okay, I got it, right? So I think that, and this is part of my belief about where humankind is going. We're going to become more and more connected to our intuition. We're going to become more and more intuitive. Now, we already are. We're all intuitive. Everybody's intuitive. Like everybody's psychic, right? But some people are born into that gift more than others, right? Like everything else, right? We're gifted in different things. But we can all learn to tune into that intuition and learn to trust it. But it's a process. You're not going to get it right overnight. Yep, I know now, right? You're going to have to go through a process. I think of it like it's like a musical instrument, maybe a guitar, right? And so, when you first get a guitar, you're probably going to sound terrible. Right? But over time, you can really feel it, right? You really feel and you can tune into it and if it's not tuned properly, right? And I think of intuition like that, so you've got to be prepared to go through the learning process.
So what's involved in that process?
Well, like I said, we all have it. So an example I give to people. Have you ever been in a situation where you were thinking about doing something and you kind of knew it wasn't going to work out well, but you did it anyway. And then you go, I knew that wasn't going to work out. Or you're in a relationship and something happens at the beginning, and you go, yeah, I knew right there and then. Because we actually tell each other who we are within the first few minutes of talking to each other. It's already there, right? And when you go through these experiences, you look back and you go, yeah, I knew. I did. He told me that, or she said that, and I just overlooked it, right? So, it's a process, like I said. So how do we learn to tune into intuition? Well, I don't know if there's an intuition school. Maybe there is. I don't know.
Make it easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, right. And maybe that intuition school is life.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's these damaging relationships and decisions we make that we're like, oh, that wasn't the right one.
Yeah. And then afterwards, but like anything, I say, can you remember the worst day of your life? And they go, you probably had a few, right? And then when you look back on it, you go, I won't want to go through that again. But the fact that I went through it has helped me so much. I remember you saying that in one of the videos I was watching this morning, it's okay. You're going to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. What's important is you pick yourself back up, right? And I love that quote that you had when you said, fear is always going to be beside you. But don't let it be the driver, right? Don't let it be the driver.
Got that from Jen Sincero. Absolutely, yeah.
The great. You got a lot of good. I wrote a ton of stuff down. I love the problem, plan, and punch it. That was great. So these are things that you can learn from other people. But the most powerful way to learn it is for yourself, right? So I know I've learned a lot. I've worked with Tony Robbins, and you've worked with amazing people as well, Robert Kiyosaki and others. And I learned a lot from them. But like I said, this experience that I went through was the most profound teaching because I lived it. So I didn't write the book because I got all my shit together. I write it because I lived it, right? And then by living it, it gives me the ability to share things with other people that I didn't know before, I hadn't seen before. And like I said, maybe save them from going through years of consequences they don't need to.
that writing the book, similar to journaling, probably helped you work through it as well and start to
oh
see
my
those
God.
patterns.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, the book really was the teacher at the point. I mean, the teachings were in the experience, but it wasn't until I actually sat down and began to write it and reflect on it that I really had the profound experience of the transformation. It's still ongoing, right? But I mean, it was a huge catharsis, if you like, to write that out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and one of the things that my friend and I were talking about this past weekend about these secret beliefs we have and getting over them was whatever we're seeking from the outside, we need to stop and seek on the inside. And this is what you say you're doing right now, saying, I'm not dating. I'm gonna go ahead and focus here so I can get this straight. And so have you dealt with, because I know a lot of people go through that. They go in and out of relationships seeking something that they just don't have inside them. And so they're never going to find it. They're going to get that little hit, and then it's going to be this big crash and then we do it again. So how have you combated the urge to jump back into that external seeking and continued to keep that focus within you?
Okay. So I think, first of all, the consequences of doing that eventually hit you hard, right? So you got to realize, the book I say, what's the definition of insanity? And people will go, yeah, well, it's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? I go, no, it's me. If you look in the dictionary under the word insanity, there's a picture of me there, right? Or at least there should be, right? So
Who does the same thing over and over again and expects different results. Please.
Yeah. So what enabled me to break the pattern was, well, the second book is called Enough is Never Enough. Right? But sometimes enough is enough. You've just had enough. You got it, right? You've had enough. And you can cut yourself off from it. But to make sure that you don't go back to it, it's kind of like getting over an addiction. She was my addiction. She was heroin, right? For me. And so what you have to do is you have to, first of all, take yourself out of that environment. And then you've got to work on yourself. What caused me to be addicted to that substance or that person?
What I think, and that's the key, is to look directly at it, which is super uncomfortable, right? So keep going. Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. So you got to, and wherever your focus goes, all your energy flows, and then you come up with solutions. People say, well, how do you get over things? And I say, well, there's many ways to do that, but the primary thing that's happened for me is just adopting a very simple belief. And when I was listening to your interview with Brigham, he said something at the end, which was close, right? It was just close. He said, sometimes things happen for you. No, everything happens for you. Everything. No exceptions, right? Because once you make an exception, you can always make an exception for something else, right? So adopting the belief that nothing happens to you, everything happens for you. So, and it sounds so simple, but sometimes the most profound things are the most simple things, right. Like a lot of things you said was simple, but profound, right? If you really take it in, if you really take it on, right? So I believe that. Now, just to clarify something, that doesn't happen like right away all the time, right? Sometimes you go, but it's hard to say this is happening for me.
That's bullshit. That happened to me. Let me explain.
That's right.
And then I calm down and I go, okay, I'm committed to this belief. Fine. Something happened for me. All right. Now I got to figure out what it is, right? But the time between that, getting angry, getting frustration, which I do, right? I get angry, I get frustrated. The time between that and then coming back to that realization, calming down, taking it on, owning it, taking responsibility. I created it. Nobody else did. I created it with my thoughts, my words, my actions. I brought that into my life for a reason. There is a gift here. What is it? And, invariably I find the silver lining and I go, okay, all right, it did happen for me. But if you don't have that belief, you don't give it that focus, you become a victim. Yeah. That life is happening to you rather than for you. And I don't want to be.
Right. And I think that looking directly at it and then shutting up for a sec and saying, let me journal, let me meditate, let me pause and stop listening around me and start listening in me because you're asking the right questions. We just need to shut up and listen to, again, that intuition. And I love that you were saying that belief needs to be there. This is all happening for me. There's a lesson here. There's something to learn. There's something I need to take out of this.
Yeah.
Let me just be quiet and stop asking. This is what I found that I needed to do. I always was asking people, what do you think? What would you do? Blah, 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 blah. Finally, I needed to be like, all right, go sit in a chair. Sit in a chair
Yeah.
in a room by yourself and just ask the question and then zip it
Yeah.
and see what comes in. Or
I love
journal.
that because
Sometimes that helps. Just write it all
yeah,
down.
yeah. So often the answer's in the silence.
Hmm?
You can just be quiet and be with it. Not easy to do, but it's worth. I say to people, listen, I didn't say it was going to be easy. I just said it's going to be worth it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So discipline is such an important part of it all because sometimes you don't want to do. I know sometimes when I meditate, I'm like, I don't want to meditate right now,
No.
but I got to be disciplined. I've made a commitment, right, and I'm going to follow through on that commitment. And then the next thing I'm in it and it's beautiful, right? Although I wasn't like that from the beginning. It used to be, but I used to sit down and meditate. And I'd close my eyes, and then like 3 minutes later, I go, "Is that half an hour yet?"
Are we there yet?
And then you go, "No, I got to go do this right now."
Yeah.
It's like your brain can't imagine sitting still for 30 minutes. So to begin with, it's a discipline. And even now, you still got to say, "I've got to do it," but it becomes easier and easier, like with everything, right? Discipline makes everything easier. It does.
Well, and it's the activation energy. Once you get the habit and you start to see the benefit and you start to see those answers dropping in and you start to see, oh, cool, okay, this is really working and this really makes a difference, then it starts to get easier.
Yeah, habit's a powerful word too. Habits control us, they make us. Yeah, so very true. So a lot of it, as we're talking here, is awareness, isn't it? It's just being more aware of ourselves. And when you're running around, as most people are, and I am too, very often, doing,
Mm-hmm.
instead of being, just being. So what I found is taking the time to just be silent. And there's many ways you can meditate, right? Meditating is not just sitting there with your fingers and with your eyes closed in a lotus position. That's not the only type of meditating. There's so many things you can do to meditate just to occupy the mind, so your creative spirit can come through, and you can be. I was laughing about this morning. I've never really lived on my own, and I've always had people take care of stuff. But I've actually enjoyed doing stuff like I do my own washing. I'll actually clean stuff up because it's a time to just rest my mind.
Yep.
And some of my best creative ideas come up while I'm doing that stuff. It's keeping my mind occupied while my spirit and creativity has a chance to work and give me solutions, give me answers, and give me ideas.
And that's exactly why people say they have insights in the shower, where you're doing something, you're not thinking about anything other than washing your hair, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's the answer I was looking for.
Yeah. You just kind of slowed your mind down to the fact that it's not having to be so busy trying to figure out everything. It can actually be creative for you and give you answers that you need. And interesting. It'd be interesting what you think about this. Everybody does it, but what I've noticed is, and this became part of my understanding about Tamaz's sexuality and why she wanted to do some of the things she wanted to do, is because it was a way for her to switch off her mind.
Yep.
She just didn't have to think about anything, right? And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. And again, I don't know this for a fact, but what I've studied and what I've learned is it seems like women tend to be thinking even more than men. Right? And it's very difficult to turn that up because you have so many responsibilities, right? Whether you've got kids, you've got the house, you've got the job, you've got all these different things. I don't know whether that's it or not. And that's why very often women want something sexually in that environment where they can just switch off. They don't have to be in control of everything anymore.
Could be. There's also functional, structural differences in the brain that create different levels of activity. I was doing some studying on the corpus callosum between men and, genetically or biologically males and females. It's fascinating stuff. So if somebody finds themselves in one of these toxic relationships, they're listening right now and they're like, they take a peek at the book and they're like, crap, I'm in this right now. What do you recommend that they do? How do you identify it? How do you decide this is not just me trying to adapt to creating a life with another human, but this is actually a bad thing? What do you recommend at that point when they start to have that awareness?
That's a great question. I answer it by saying, what do you think it takes to be successful? And people go, I don't know. I don't even know what success is. So first of all, we've got to figure you out, right? We've got to figure out where this is coming from. So there isn't one way, right? There isn't just one way. I have to know you. I have to know your environment, where you're coming from, and all those kind of things. So I don't do, basic therapy, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I don't have many clients because for me, we're going to go deep. We're going to go deep into this. We're going to just, because there's no point in just talking about it and then going away and come back the next week and talking about it again. We're just going around in circles, right? So if people want to work with me, we have a conversation first, see if it's a good fit, we resonate. But also, I got to know that you're really serious, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to waste my time.
I don't want
to waste yours, right? Let's get real here. There is a way to get there, but it isn't going to happen in one session. It's going to happen over time. And there are going to be steps to get there. Now, the steps for you might be different than somebody else because they may be further down the path than you. You may be further down the path than them. We may not need to go through all of it to get you where you want to go, but I got to discover that first. So the first thing is discovery. And then, the first thing is that you got to be really committed. You got to be committed to doing this. You got to be at a point where I was, right? I can't do this anymore. I'm done with this. Then I was ready, but I wasn't ready until then, right? And once you're at that point, you could probably figure it out on your own. It's very, very unlikely, not impossible, right? We all need people to see into our lives, right? Mm-hmm. So I've been a big proponent and I've done a lot of therapy, maybe more than I should. But anyway, it's good, because you get people's insights. You go, wow, I never even noticed that about myself, right? Yep. Damn, no wonder this, no wonder that, right? And then it feels good. And then you become almost addicted to that learning process, right?
It's true.
What other things? Yeah, what other things do I not know about myself, right? That I can face and learn about in a safe environment, right? Because sometimes we get these messages and we see that we're doing something that maybe we shouldn't, but we don't want to own it in that moment, right? We don't want to lose face. We don't want to be embarrassed by it. And then later on, we just forget and then we repeat it again.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. Yeah, that needing to look externally sometimes to get that help, to see the saying that I've heard that I didn't understand for a long time until I totally understood it was, you can't see the label from inside the jar. And so getting that external perspective, super valuable. Well, The Venus Flytrap is the book. It's available now, right?
It is, for sure. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we will put the link to that in the show notes. If they are interested in getting in touch with you, how can they find you?
Well, two things. I sent you, or the team sent you, I think, a couple of links. One is for you to get a free copy of the first 3 chapters. So you can read that, see if it resonates with you, if you enjoy it, and you feel like it's something you want to get the book. Okay. And then the second thing is a link to a free counseling session, right? So I do and I can't do it for everybody. You got a large audience, right? So kind of first come, first serve. But I will do a 30-minute complimentary session with you. See if you're committed, I'm committed, that we resonate, and we can go from there.
I love it. I love it. All right. So I will put all those links in the show notes. Stephen, thank you so much for your time and your insights and for looking directly at it and dancing in the discomfort zone with us today.
I love that. Thank you so much, Anna. It's been a pleasure.